You know, I honestly think it's been like a week since I've started it. Give this video a big thumbs up if you guys are ready for this pandemic to end. Let's go for a drive. Try that again.
It was at this moment that he knew he fucked up.
So it seems like we've just had a very unfortunate turn of events. The Z is very much broken right now and will not even drive, which is terrible timing because I've driven this car for roughly, let me see if I can get in the sun here. There we go. I've driven the car for roughly about 2,500 miles now and have had no issue, but after doing those pulls this morning, and I've done pulls previously, but it seems that the car is having problems now. I can't even drive it without it starting to go into something even worse than limp mode. Let's see if we can get some of the engine codes here. Fortunately, I've got the Ecutech app installed on the tablet in the car, and I've got the dongle plugged in, so we're gonna have to read the DTCs here and see what we get. Alright, so it appears that we have random multiple misfires, A camshaft position timing, evap purge system, and engine oil pressure too low. So yeah, that was a completely unplanned start to this video. As you guys saw, I was having issues with timing as well as misfires and low oil pressure. Basically, to catch you guys up on what happened, I ended up walking about half a mile to a local auto parts store, picked up some oil to top off the Z, reset the engine ECU, cleared the DTCs, but that still of course didn't fix the timing problem. There's some deeper underlying issue right now related to oil pressure and the timing, so I couldn't get the issue to go away. I was able to cautiously sort of limp the car home, so I've been able to get it back in the garage without having to tow it now. And that kind of sums up what the past about month has been like. I've been running into some small issues here or there. Nothing related to Aaron's kit. The Supercharger kit has been brilliant for the first 2,500 miles that I've had it, but I'll talk a little bit more on that here in just a second. So some of you guys have been bugging me a lot recently. Robert, why have you not uploaded the past few weeks? Why haven't you put the dyno sheets up yet? We want to see the review of the car. So basically it comes down to, guys, I haven't had enough time lately to be able to put the videos together. If you haven't edited a video before, it takes a long time. For me, I usually spend about 4 hours shooting a video like this. It takes me another maybe 4 to 8 hours just to edit it at minimum. So it's a huge time sink, and I've just been extremely busy recently. So I do have a full-time job. I'm not a full-time YouTuber, so I haven't had the time to be able to put the videos together like you'll see on most channels. I usually just do this on the weekends, and lately I've been trying to spend a little bit more time with friends and family, working out, just kind of bettering myself in a few ways. So yeah, that's pretty much why I haven't been able to upload consistently lately. But I'm here now, so let me give you guys a quick update on what's been going on with the car. So first and foremost, the Supercharger kit itself has been performing pretty much flawlessly. Aaron's kit is amazing, to say the least. I've been making pretty good power based on the butt dyno. I'm having one small issue right now with belt slips, so I'm supposed to be getting about 14 pounds of boost, and I'm actually getting closer to about 11 and a half, and based off of some of the logs that I've collected and reviewed with the tuner, Eugene, it's looking like we're getting a bit of belt slip, so I need to go in there and adjust that tensioner again. So we're not making peak power yet, which is why we haven't continued forward with the tune. It's why we haven't dynoed the car yet. And I think the low oil pressure warning that I'm getting... Sorry about that, having to move here because we just pulled the 4Runner into the garage. But yeah, so another issue that I've been dealing with is related to oil leaks. So right after installing the Supercharger kit, I ended up getting an oil leak in 2 locations. The first was from where the oil cooler line's attached to the sandwich plate, and I suspect that's due to the fact that when we were putting all the new intake plumbing in, we had to shimmy those oil cooler lines around. I think they came up a little bit loose. The other location is from a timing solenoid, which sits here on the front of the engine, which basically adjusts the phaser to be able to modify the timing. As I was going and bending that coolant line out of the way while we were installing the supercharger kit, I think I ended up bending that bracket a little bit, so it ended up breaking the oil seal in there. I ended up kind of bending the bracket back a tad to try and restore the seal, but I was still leaking oil at a rate of maybe half a liter every couple of weeks. It might have even been less than that. It was pretty insignificant, so I kind of ignored it for a little bit. Basically, I was going to try and get around to it once I finally had a weekend to go in there and fix everything. But ignoring that oil leak, I think, caused it to get a little bit worse, and that caused the issue that you just saw at the beginning of this video, where it was below the minimum line. I was losing oil pressure. That oil pressure loss might be due to those two leaks, or it might also be due to a potential leak in, for instance, the gallery gasket. I really don't know. Going around and just fixing those two oil leak locations might solve the problem, but there could also be some more critical things that have gone wrong with the timing, like the chain might have skipped, or there might be an issue with one of the phasers, which is causing my timing to now be advanced on the Bank A. So really the best thing to do right now is to go ahead and take that front timing cover off, and that's no small job. It basically means I'm going to have to take the entire front section of the car out. It's going to include the bumper, it's going to include the radiator and the radiator core support, all of the supercharger stuff. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's just going to take a lot of time to do. But there's a few things that I need to sit in maintenance about both the kit as well as some potential exhaust leaks and things to be able to continue tuning this car. So to kind of take a step back for a second, Eugene Turkov and I have been working with this, and we flashed it a couple of times to try and refine the tune. But one thing we noticed is that we were having an issue with two things. One was with AFR differences in between Bank 1 and Bank 2, which suggests that I probably have an exhaust leak, potentially coming from the driver's side where the exhaust header is made up to the engine. And if you recall from my long tube header install video, we had an issue with one of the studs not going in quite right. I suspect it's possibly related to that, or it might be related to the fact that I didn't replace my exhaust gaskets, which you should always do. Whenever you're doing something with the intakes or doing something with the exhaust, you should replace your gaskets. And I've been lazy about doing that, especially lately. So one of the things that I'm going to do while we're kind of taking everything apart is I'm going to replace all the exhaust and intake gaskets on the vehicle. Hopefully that'll solve the AFR issue that we're seeing. And then the other thing that I want to address is the supercharger. So another thing we saw is potential belt slip. As we got above roughly 6,500 RPM, or possibly even less than that, we ended up seeing that my load on the engine was beginning to go down, and that was a pretty big indicator that we were probably having belt slip. So the supercharger unit itself needs to come out anyways, just because I need to go and tighten the tensioner. While everything's out of the car, including the radiator core and stuff, as I said, we'll replace the exhaust gaskets for the long tube headers. And while we're at it, so my oil temps have been fairly good. They've stayed within range. I've been hitting about 220 just cruising on the freeway with it being fairly cold outside. But I would like to see those temperatures come down just a little bit. So one thing I'm going to go ahead and do, I'd originally debated doing a dual oil cooler where I install another oil cooler core to try and increase the amount of cooling capacity. But I think one of the things I'm going to do first is actually just upgrade my radiator. So I've got an upgraded radiator that's supposed to come in. I've also got some additional components which you might be able to see there near the hood of the car. I've got a few things from Z1 Motorsports I just ordered in, some replacement parts and things. So why don't we go ahead and open that up now. Alright, so first things first, we got a bunch of replacement gaskets. So I'm going to be replacing the gaskets where the intake manifold, the lower plenum, meets the engine block, so we've got some new gaskets for that. We have some new exhaust gaskets here, although these look a little bit warped. I'm going to talk to Z1 Motorsports about that and see if this is really a big issue or not. Also got some replacement gaskets for the timing cover itself. Replacing the gallery gaskets. Don't necessarily know if these went bad or not, but you might as well replace them while you're in there. Some other additional gaskets and things for like the timing solenoid and stuff, just to kind of make sure that there's going to be no oil leaks there. And a replacement gasket for the upper intake plenum as well. And then I went ahead and ordered all of their replacement Z1 silicone hoses. I think this will give a nice look to the engine bay. Might as well be able to replace these hoses while I'm in there. So I think these new hoses with the Z1 Motorsports logo will look quite good under the hood. And then I've also ordered a replacement radiator core support. So those of you who have been following the channel for a while, you'll know that I got into a small little accident. This entire section right here of the radiator core support became damaged. And then also while I was installing the supercharger kit, namely when I was bending the radiator coolant line out of the way, I ended up pressing up against this top section of the core support, and it kind of broke that as well. So it doesn't look great if I'm trying to show the vehicle and got that little chunk missing. It's not super critical, but this is one of the few times where I'll actually have access to this piece, so might as well replace it now while I'm in there. So yeah, we'll be going ahead and doing that. So yeah, that's everything that I currently have in right now. I still have the radiator coming in, the upgraded radiator that we'll be putting in the car. And then that timing solenoid is currently on back order as well from Nissan, so I don't have that part in yet. But those should be in by the time that I get around to actually replacing them. So in terms of time frames on this, normally if I had time to dedicate maybe a weekend to this and maybe a couple extra days, I could probably get it done in a week or so. But because I try and film everything for you guys, and also because I've been so busy, the time frame for this is probably more comfortably going to be like a month or two. The car probably won't be running again this year. It'll probably take into January to just get all of these parts replaced. I do apologize to you guys about that wait for those of you who have been anxious to see dyno results and a proper review with this car. But really we want to get it all in working order and running strong before we end up sending it to the dyno so we can get the best numbers possible. So yeah, as I said, it will probably take me a couple of months. That includes editing videos, waiting for the couple of extra parts that I have, and as I said, I've just been a lot busier lately, so I don't have as much dedicated time to work on it. But I will be giving you guys status updates as I go, so there will be additional videos moving forward. I want to reiterate that none of the issues that I've run into that I've talked about today are related to Aaron's kit. It's not related to Eugene's tuning. It's simply just related to the fact that I was having a couple of small issues with oil leaks as well as not having adjusted that tensioner correctly. Aaron's kit has been running completely flawlessly, so I've been hitting right around 11 pounds of boost. Once we get the belt tensioner set and when I take off some of those pre-filters, we'll probably be hitting closer to 14 pounds. But even on just 11 pounds of boost, this car pulls. I've already been able to beat out a couple of 5.0 Mustangs. I've raced a couple of other guys on the street, and this thing just goes. Around town, it feels fairly normal. It doesn't really feel much different until I get above right around 3,000 or 4,000 RPM. The boost begins to build, and can really tell that this car takes off. While I was tuning, doing some data logging for Eugene, I was actually getting wheel spin in 4th gear, and the traction control light was hitting. So yeah, this car really runs strong. And then in terms of Eugene's tuning, he has been completely helpful throughout this entire process. He's answered all of my questions, even offered up suggestions and things. He's the one who recommended the Radium Surge tank unit. So he's a very valuable resource if you guys are looking for a tuner. I highly recommend talking to Eugene. Absolutely amazing. So yeah, that's currently where the car is at right now, and I again apologize for the amount of time that this is going to take, but I want to make sure the car gets done right, and I want to make sure that I do all the proper documentation for you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for your patience. Leave any comments you have down below or questions. I'll try and get to them, but again, I'm sorry if I haven't been responding lately. Just been really busy, guys. But thank you guys for watching, and see y'all in the next one. Later.
Nothing can bring us down, 'cause we are